Hello, everybody. Dr. Rick Wallace dropping in on you. I hope that you guys are off to a good start midway at the midway point of your week. I'm kind of crunched for time, so I'm going to do the best I can to get what I have to get off my chest. As always, I want to thank you guys for your continued love, support, and inspiration that continues to fuel me in doing the work that I do. I am immensely passionate and committed to what I do. It's not something that's easy by any stretch of the imagination. As I told you guys some 10 plus years ago, that I'm not in this. Hello, Regina. I'm not in this for popularity. I'm not in this for the likes and the shares, even though that does help the message get out. Uh, I don't need my ego stroked. I'm not here to prove I'm right. What I'm here to do is take the years upon years of research that I have invested in understanding the dilemma and enigmatic issues that we face as a people and present solutions, present a starting point for discussion, observation, evaluation, assessment, and engagement. In other words, to do more than talk about it, to do more than complain, but to sit up and identify issues and come up with real life solutions that can be applied. Um, it is immensely important for us to understand that what drives me, and that's what has to drive us. I'm not here because I need to feel important. I'm here because I have a purpose in this world, and my purpose is directly connected to what I identify with most, and that's my blackness. I'm a black man. I'm a black man who's a black husband, who's a black father, who's a black business owner, who's a black scientist and researcher, a black psychologist. All of this stuff falls underneath my blackness. I am not anything separated from my blackness. I have now nor never ever desired to be anything but black. I have never desired anything but a black woman. And in that is the true nature and expression of what drives me. This isn't an indictment of anyone who doesn't think like me, but for those who do and understand where I'm coming from, I'm here to offer you what I have spent my adult life and even the later part of my teens gaining an understanding of, thanks to the late Dr. Francis Cress Welsing. All right, I want to get to this. And before I do, I want to remind you guys, we are still in need of your support. I have just put the information up on how you can support the work we're doing. That does include research, that includes programs like Black Men Lead, Rite of Passage Initiative, Restoring Ghettos Forgotten Daughters program headed by my wife and also myself, and the new initiative that we're working very hard on in creating a mental health network to help provide resources to people who are suffering and struggling with different mental health issues in the Black community, especially our young teenagers. We are having a string of suicides and violence directly associated with mental health issues. And so we want to deal with that. So definitely support the work we're doing. Click the link, do it through our Cash App account, however you want to do it and whatever you want to do. We also are encouraging people to email us and connect with us so that we can do work together. I'm one person, and I believe that with the right people connecting and creating a network, there's absolutely no issue we can't confront and answer. We are an exceptional and extraordinary people living in extraordinary times, but we are going to have to understand the need for unity, understand the need for action, understand the need for knowledge. A great deal of the things we suffer because we don't know how things work. And I constantly teach that because it's so important for us to gain that understanding. Now, for the reason I'm here. About 5 years ago, I made my mind up that I was no longer going to watch videos of young black men being shot down primarily by police officers and white vigilantes. I first of all, it was doing something to my spirit. Second of all, I didn't want to become desensitized to the pain and the horror it creates. Uh, and so I know though that the longer and the more consistent and frequently you watch stuff like that, the less it tends to move you. It's just, it becomes a part of what you expect. And I never want that to be my norm. I never want to see, I never want seeing a black man shot down in cold blood to become a norm to me. I don't want that. I don't want it to be just one more thing that we accept as our lot in life in this pitiful country without standing up and pushing back. And so there are a couple of things that I want to address here. The first thing that I want to address are the foolish, conditioned mind with the conditioned mindset. Those who are black, and the first thing out of their minds is, why aren't you as equally upset about black on black crime? Anytime I hear a black person say that, it makes me cringe. And it makes me cringe because it says that you actually have done no reading, no research, and have no understanding of how things work. And you're simply regurgitating a concept created to marginalize your suffering. And what does that mean? It means this, that when you study criminology or penology, when you study how things work, you find that violence is perpetuated within the enclave or the circle of existence of any people. Let me explain it a different way. 84 plus percent of white people who are murdered by other white people, yet you never hear the term white on white crime. Why? Because the term was created to isolate and phenomenize the killing of black people as if it's a unique phenomenon in which black people are more violent than any other race. The truth is, people commit acts of violence primarily from emotion, and emotional upheavals come within your own circle. You tend to get upset with people you know. You tend to become frenetic and unglued and frustrated with people you know and spend time around. And while we live in a country that loves to advertise and promote the idea of cultural and racial diversity, we still are very segregated when it comes to where we live. Blacks tend to live around blacks, Latinos tend to live around Latinos, whites tend to live around whites. Obviously, there's a little bit of that exceptions around, but as a general rule, that's what happens. So when people tend to kill people, they kill people they know. And so the idea that black on black crime is some unique phenomenon. Now, are areas that blacks live in many ways, sometimes more violent? Yes, but that's explained through criminology. Where poverty exists, crime intensifies. Crime is primarily a result of survival. When people cannot eat, they find a way to eat. When people find a way to eat, they will fight and kill to defend their mechanism of eating. So if I've got a corner that I sell my stuff on, whatever my stuff is, and someone tries to invade that corner, there's a good chance there's going to be violence. It happened with the Latinos. It's happened with the Italians back when the mafia was the big crime story before Italians start to legitimize their businesses and move out of the crime sector for the most part. That was them. And it is simply a natural progression in poverty. So if you want to reduce the crime, you reduce the poverty, and a large portion of the crime. Yes, there are people who are just criminal minded, but most people are committing crimes based out of a perception that they don't have other options and no one's going to starve to death. That's the basics of criminology 101. I'm not here to justify or to make excuses. I'm simply talking about this idea that blacks killing black is some unique phenomenon that is expressive of some hidden or inherent characteristic of violence. No, violence is a learned trait. It is a developed trait. It is a trait taken in out of some form of necessity, whether to protect oneself, to provide for oneself, to defend, or whatever. It can have different nuances about it that are somehow inherent. Genetically, there can be some things, but that's not what we're talking here. We're talking about an environmental reality. You pushed us into poverty, and then you want to judge us based on our behavior because of the poverty without ever mentioning the poverty. I don't have a problem discussing crime within the proper context of poverty. I have no problem discussing the intraracial violence and homicide when we talk about poverty, environment, and trauma. We've got to talk about the entire context. If we're going to discuss it, we're not going to throw it out there and create an illusion that in some way Black people are inherently more violent than white people or any other race. That's not the case. Black people are simply responding to their environment, responding to their history, responding to their sense of helplessness, and one must take into consideration this reality. Look, the second part of this, George Floyd. I have, since 2015, I have made it my purpose to avoid, I have made it a commitment to avoid snuff videos or videos in which Black men are killed. Whether it's by white police officers or white vigilante. I have made it a purpose to avoid those and not to see them. And so that was violated by someone I trusted who sent me a video, and I didn't know what it was because it didn't have any commentary. And I saw the killing of Ahmaud Arbery. But I have gone out of my way not to see this video of George Floyd being killed by, I believe this guy's name is Derek Chauvin or whatever. But I've read enough. I've heard enough accounts to find the consistencies to get a clear idea of what happened. Let's be clear about this. This isn't simply a renegade cop. What we're seeing is a reign of terror that is taking place in behind the covering of the badge. This isn't simply a form of genocide, it's a form of terror. See, while we see it consistency, the numbers are not something that in and of themselves are going to deplete the male population. There are a number of different ways that that's being done. This is about terror. This is about the same type of terror that was put upon us during Jim Crow through lynching and hanging Black men from trees and cutting their genitals off and setting them on fire and taking pictures of it and putting it on postcards and cutting pieces of the body off and keeping it as souvenirs. What you have to understand is that there is a form of psychosis within a large sector of the white population that finds a euphoria from watching Black people suffer, even die. There's a man who came on social media, Sean, I want to say White Jr. or something like that, who said he got a huge rise out of watching this Black man die on video. And he was dead serious. And of course, social media and Facebook and YouTube are putting him on blast. But the truth of the matter is he's not alone. You got to understand that back during the years of Jim Crow, it was not uncommon for white people to have picnics at lynchings. It was not uncommon for large groups together and for them to even bring their children. It was, you look at the videos, what bothers me most is not just that they have children there, but they are smiling on these photos. So it's not even about anger. This isn't about anger, as in, okay, we're angry because we really feel this person did something. This is about, we got another chance to kill a black person. We used whatever excuse we could to make it happen, but we got what we wanted and we're reveling in it. And they will still today try to convince the world that the black man is the one who needs to be feared. You search the atrocities of Europeans and they run centuries. You search the atrocities of the United States white population and it runs centuries. But they will sit up and they will champion the narrative of black devastation and black terror and black violence, and they have been the ones raining terror throughout the black community since we were free. And we know what happened in slavery, but since the quasi emancipation of blacks in 1865, we went through 12 years of Reconstruction, which was the reigning terror throughout the South of clandestine groups like the Ku Klux Klan, who were literally burning Union military installations and forts, ultimately running the North out of the South, and then reclaiming as much of the antebellum purity of the South prior to the Civil War as they could. That is the truth as far as that's concerned. All right, let's keep moving. You've got black codes. No blacks can own businesses, own land. We are terrorizing them economically at this point. Then there's the institution of laws against vagrancy, poverty, homelessness, and a bunch of other things that were common among slaves because they had just been pushed off of plantations with no place to go. So they turned around and locked them back up, put them in prisons, and they began a program known as convict leasing, where plantation owners could actually lease convicts to work their farms. And convicts weren't paid, so actually they're back in it. The plantation owner had to pay a very small fee to the state for the use of the prison labor. It is the big brother to mass incarceration, where now across the nation, prison labor is used from everything from customer service, textiles, manufacturing, agricultural, growing, and everything else across the board. It is simply crazy how that transpired. But then you got all this stuff in the middle. Serial forced displacement in a number of different forms: redlining, urban renewal, benign neglect, and now gentrification. That serial forced displacement has had a massive impact on the mental health of blacks and the physical health. It played a role in the mass spreading of HIV in the 80s. I've written on this. So you're looking at all the ways that they've reigned terror. The badge provides a covering that allows them to hide behind it while they reign terror through fear. The fear that's created when you sit up and you see a white police officer. The fear that a white police officer can kill you with impunity and there will be no retribution. The fear that you can lose a loved one in a heartbeat for nothing. Now, I'm going to end this because I have something I have to get to. I'm going to end this on this note. I have said this over and over again. We don't live in a world governed by morality. Oh, yes, the people in the US love to talk on the topic of morality. They love to present a narrative of their moral superiority and giving themselves justification to be in everyone else's business around the world. But when you study America, America does not have moral fiber. America does not express moral behavior. In fact, there is a moral corruption about the very makeup of this country, how it was built, how it has been sustained. There is no moral fortitude. So when you look at it, you have to sit up and understand you cannot appeal to the morality of something or someone that is not moral. It is an impossibility. We gotta stop thinking we can sweet talk them or convince them of their degradation and somehow get them to rise up to a level that they are incapable of reaching. What we have to understand that we live in a world of consequence. We live in the world of consequence. What do I mean by that? Most people's behavior are governed by the fear of consequences for poor behavior. You got a bunch of people never been to prison because they're afraid of the consequences, not because they were morally against doing a particular thing. You provide consequences for undesired actions, and at that point, you stop everything through consequence. If you want someone to stop doing something, you apply a negative consequence to the action, and it will stop a large portion of the behavior solely based on someone not wanting to have to face the consequence. It is time for us to put a consequence on the taking of Black life, and that's going to have to go across the board. It can't solely apply to one group. It has to say Black lives matter. The lives of Black women matter. The lives of Black children matter. The lives of Black men matter. And if you take a life unjustifiably, meaning they weren't doing anything to you to threaten you, and you take a life, then there has to be a consequence. And we must carry out this code in the Black community. We must enforce it in the Black community so that we send a message that there is absolutely no acceptance for violence against ours. We've got to stand up. We've got to have a code of conduct, a code of behavior, protocols in place that demand and require action. But be not deceived. This is a reign of terror. The question is, are we going to respond or are we going to react? On that note, I'm checking out of here. You guys have an unbelievable week. There's so much that we need to talk about. Yes, this is state-sanctioned murder, and it's happening all the time. It's going to be our responsibility to do something about it. Again, don't forget to support the work we're doing at the Odyssey Project. Go to the description box, click the link, go to the site and give that way. Or give through our Cash App handle. If you want to work with the Odyssey Project and some of the things that we're doing for mental health, we need some mental health professionals badly. Whether you want to work in some of the programs or you want to implement a program in your community, you can email me at this address. And I will get back with you personally in exchange. For those of you who were working with me before the heart attack, definitely reach back out, because some of you, I may have misplaced some of your information or it may have gotten caught. I get hundreds of emails a day. So if it's gone down a couple of weeks, it's going to be hard for me to kind of locate it. So if I was working with you, I know some people in Chicago that I was really building momentum with and about to connect. So I really want you guys to reach back out to me. There are some other places that I'm working as well. You guys reach out to me. Anybody that wants to implement Black Men Lead or Ghettos Forgotten Daughters in your community, reach out to us. On that note, I'm gonna get ready to get out of here and get prepared for my session with my client. On that note, you guys have a great day.